Adventure Time was one of the shows that established how complex a cartoon could really be. From having mind-bending episodes that made you question your own existence, to wholesome episodes about side characters that made you feel more than you could ever think. However, there was one character that completely transformed the show. A character that started as a joke, a gag villain, a character that honestly pissed me off more than anyone as a kid. But soon, that opinion drastically transformed. There was a character buried beneath the madness, a character lost to time, a character that gave up his entire being to protect the ones he loved most. This is the full story of Ice King, the joke that wept. The full story of Simon Petrikov, the silence after sanity. If you're new around here, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. I make video essays on games, shows, and movies almost every week. I wanted to give you once more a huge thank you for 100,000 subscribers. I finally got my plaque, and as a big thank you, here's a big video recapping and analyzing the best Adventure Time character. We begin in seasons 1 to 3. See, as I stated in the intro, Ice King wasn't a serious character at all initially. He was just some horny ice wizard who loved kidnapping princesses, which prompted Finn and Jake to kick his ass. He did stuff like forcing an old lady to marry him, kidnapping Princess Bubblegum 1,000 times, and accidentally creating a sentient heart that was also out for PB. He also practically killed her after Finn and Jake defeated the Lich, which transformed her into this deformed and mangled monster. Wood.
What? No!
Although he was the reason she became possessed, he's also the reason Finn and Jake were able to stop her. Despite Ice King being a horny bastard, he's no Diddy.
She's 13 years old now.
Oh, dang it! Well, I'm out of here. Goodbye, everyone.
Above all else, Ice King is shown to be extremely lonely. He would often spy on Finn and Jake. Not for any nefarious reason, the guy apparently just wanted to learn how to be happy. We also learn of a fanfiction that Ice King wrote, called Fionna and Cake. See, in his story, everyone is gender swapped. That's about it for now when it comes to Fionna and Cake, but this will be important later for when we get to the sequel/spin-off show. We now arrive at one of the most important episodes when it comes to his character, Holly Jolly Secrets Part 1 and Part 2. Finn and Jake find these secret tapes of Ice King, and the whole episode revolves around them watching them and trying to decode any secrets from any of the tapes. While they do this, poor Ice King wants to join them, not realizing they're watching his tapes. When he finds out, he ambushes them, but then they play the final tape. We see a human by the name of Simon Petrikov, an antiquarian researching ancient artifacts. He says that his life changed when one day he came across this magic crown. He showed his fiancée Betty, even jokingly putting it on to make her laugh, but that's when he heard voices calling to him. He started screaming for them to stop, only for his fiancée to be looking at him with horror. After that, he never saw Betty again. We then see him in different stages of his transformation. Now he can hear the cold whispers even without wearing the crown. We see him asking for forgiveness from those he may wrong in the future, when his mind has completely transformed.
Just watch over me until I can find my way out of this labyrinth in my brain and regain my sanity. And then maybe Betty, my princess, maybe you will love me again.
This entire scene was a huge lore bomb. It recontextualizes everything you thought you knew about Ice King. The human, once known as Simon, merely had some bad luck, driving those he loved away. After watching this and learning of Ice King's true past, Finn and Jake stopped treating him like a villain. That's not to say they treat him like their best friend either. They just tolerate him. And the tragedy of his story only continues, which I'll get to later. We now arrive at season 4, and I'm going to briefly touch on the episode Beyond This Earthly Realm. Finn and Jake come across this cave where they find an ancient porcelain lamb. Finn touches it and is transported to a different dimension called the spirit realm, filled with these weird creatures. He can see Jake and everyone else in the mortal realm, but they can't see him. There is one character, however, that exists in the material plane who can see him, Ice King. See, he can see spirits with his wizard eyes, something he references back in Mortal Recoil when he's telling Finn and Jake that PB is possessed. Ice King tells Finn that he needs to send all of these disgusting creatures inside this hole and plug it up, which will eventually send Finn back. After completing this task, he says,
Ice King! Ice King! Where'd you go, Simon?
An important line, because it shows that Finn no longer sees him as just the asshole that was the Ice King. He's become more human in his eyes. He then finds him dancing on his bed, celebrating how that now all the spirits are gone, Finn will be forced to only be friends with him. Finn barely reacts and tells him he's gonna go open up the hole again, but Ice King stops him and says that he's got another plan, to destroy the lamb that Jake has. Instead of politely coming to Jake to tell him his plan, he breaks in and tries to jump him.
I will smash you! Ah!
Escape! Ah! My winter body!
Pause. And then Ice King accidentally touches the lamb and gets trapped with Finn. This is where we get an interesting scene.
Cool. What do you think, Finn? Can we pull back the veil of static and reach into the source of all being? Behind this curtain of patterns, this random pattern generator. So clever. Right here in every home, watching us from a one-sided mirror.
Now, obviously, this scene is clearly a fourth wall break, a joke that Ice King may be aware that he's in a TV show. But as a kid, this scene always felt like something deeper to me, like his loneliness and the power of the crown had drained so much from him. In a way, he wants to believe he's in a TV show. Maybe the idea that someone out there is watching would bring him some kind of comfort. Obviously, just speculation on my end. This was most certainly just a one-off joke. Eventually, by manipulating the wind and gaining momentum, he and Ice King are able to break the lamb, and they're set free. I think this is one of the more underrated episodes in Adventure Time, because it develops Finn and IK's relationship, and it's one of the funniest episodes. We now arrive at another very important episode, I Remember You. Ice King shows up at Marceline's house because he wants to write a song with her. He says this line,
And I've got a way tortured past. I think. I don't really.
Further showcasing how the crown has been blocking out his memory. He then goes into what he calls the past room, taking out some pages from his scrapbook before heading out to Marceline's. And you can see from the look she gives when he enters her cave,
No.
that she's worried. She then says,
What are you doing here? I told you not to come around me.
See, at first, one would think that Ice King probably kidnapped her at one point, but throughout the show, we have never once seen this happen. And two, Marceline wouldn't get kidnapped by him. She'd toss his ass. So there's something else beneath the surface here. He enters her house, trying to set up his equipment, when Finn and Jake show up, giving us one of Jake's best lines.
Your constant harassment of the female gender makes me sick.
However, as they're about to take him away, Marceline surprisingly tells him that he can stay. They begin to work on one song, where it starts off with Ice King talking about the various princesses in the land. It then takes a sad turn when he starts screaming for anyone to love him.
Anybody! God in the sky, please tell me why!
Stop acting like this.
Marceline then sings a song about how it's bittersweet to see Ice King like this, and she asks him,
Duh, you don't remember anything, do you, Simon?
What, man?
Ice King then takes out a bunch of those papers he took from his scrapbook, and Marceline finds one that has a photo of human Simon. She urges him to remember who he was, but he simply can't. She then rummages through the scraps once more, only to find a photo of herself from when she was a child, telling Ice King that he took this photo. Behind it, she finds a somber passage that Simon wrote before he went fully crazy. Marcy sings it before she shows Ice King more papers, desperately urging him to remember. He sings along, only for Marceline to tear up as she plays along with her bass. Although Finn and Jake stare in confusion.
What is going on in there?
I have no idea.
What we see next is a familiar scene. The mushroom war has just occurred, plunging Ooh into utter destruction and chaos. We see baby Marceline, a scene very similar to the one we saw back in season 3, Memory of a Memory. But she's all alone, crying in the middle of a destroyed city. She is then approached by a nearly turned Simon. He finds her a teddy bear from a nearby toy store and hands it to her to comfort her. This is Hambo, a teddy bear we know to be extremely important to her. This is shown in that same season 3 episode where she lashes out at her ex, Ash, when he sold it to a witch. But it is here that we finally understand the reason why she loves it so much, because it was given to her by Simon. This was yet again another lore bombshell for fans. We knew Simon's story was depressing, but adding in the fact that he was close to baby Marceline during the time of the war made this even more gut-wrenching. And we know clearly that they parted ways sometime after this, given how upset she is in the present. What Simon goes through is a clear allegory for someone going through Alzheimer's. He loses his memory, transforming into someone barely recognizable and pushing away the people he loves. Marceline even states in her song that she kept moving because Ice King kept finding out where she lived. She tries to keep away from him, but no matter how hard she tries, she can't help but love him from a distance. She is in the cover of Darkness, a deeply agonizing and bleak episode that forever changed the tone of the cartoon, and is up there as one of the best in the entire show. We now move to season 5, and I'm going to briefly touch on the episode Bad Little Boy. So Ice King has kidnapped some princesses again, and begins to tell them another story of his fanfic, Fionna and Cake. Marcy then shows up, freeing the princesses, and begins to tell a revised version of Ice King's fanfic, featuring her male counterpart, Marshall Lee. I want to mention this because it shows that after their emotional encounter in I Remember You, she is slowly beginning to accept Simon's new form, and is trying to find any way she can to spend with him, even if it means indulging in his ridiculous obsessions. We now arrive at the follow-up to I Remember You, titled Simon and Marcy. Finn and Jake take on Ice King and Marceline in basketball, only for the pair to ask her why she invited Simon. She says that they have a long history together, and proceed to tell everyone the story of when she was a little girl. 996 years ago exactly, Simon and Marceline wander the ruins of the land of Ooh after the mushroom bomb exploded. Although everything is in shambles, the two try to look on the bright side of the chaos. Unfortunately, the minute Simon sees something that could harm them, he primes himself to put on the crown. After defending them against a random deer, Marcy snaps him out of it. His transformation is getting worse and worse, and she makes him promise her that he'll never put it on again. Later, during a campfire, Simon sings the intro song to the TV show Cheers, and reenacts a scene to cheer up Marceline. Marceline's laughing soon turns into coughing, and Simon realizes that she has a fever. The next morning, the two head out to find some warm chicken soup and come across a soup store, but as expected, it's practically empty. Well, except for this thing.
Simon, look.
A monster as a result of the mutagenic bomb. Simon then takes it out with the crown, and before they know it, a bunch of these things come after them, full zombie apocalypse style. The pair gets cornered, and Simon hides Marceline in a car before breaking his promise. He starts singing the Cheers theme song once more, while he goes apeshit on the mutants.
Where everybody knows your name.
After snapping back to reality, he sees this piece of gum drop down some chicken soup for him, which he cautiously accepts. The memory ends with Simon giving her the soup and the two hugging.
I love you, Simon.
I love you, Gunter.
Marceline ends her story by telling all of them,
Little Marcy felt a lot better, and she and Simon lived happily ever after.
well, sorry to burst your bubbles, guys, but this is in fact an absolute lie. Regardless, Finn and Jake look over at Ice King with new eyes and newfound respect. This episode, like I Remember You, was so disheartening that I forgot this was supposed to be a kid's show. The formula of an old man taking care of a young child in a post-apocalyptic setting can seem overplayed, but to me, if done correctly, it can produce some of the best writing imaginable, and Adventure Time knocked it out of the park. Fun fact, Olivia Olson, the voice of Marceline, was actually babysat in real life by Tom Kenny when she was a girl, and Tom Kenny is the voice of Simon. Most likely, the writers took inspiration of their story for Simon and Marcy. Does knowing that make the episode any less profound? Not at all. If anything, it makes the emotional impact even stronger. During the rest of season 5, Ice King does his usual thing. In one episode, he gets mad that he wasn't invited to PB's potluck, when in truth he was, and he just forgot to check the mail. Despite Ice King still being a nuisance to her, it's shown that she's become less malicious towards him, probably because she realizes he isn't an actual threat. In the episode Frost and Fire, Ice King flames Flame Princess, no pun intended, and loses a fight with her. Finn gets horny seeing this, starts getting wet dreams, and manipulates the two to fight several times. The final fight causes her to melt the whole Ice Kingdom. Ironic that in this episode, Finn's the bad guy and Ice King is the poor bastard. He then moves in with Finn and Jake while Gunther rebuilds the Ice Kingdom for a few episodes. We now arrive at another big episode, Betty. This wizard named Bellanoche tricks some wizards and removes all of their powers. Unfortunately, Ice King is there and gets caught in the blast, turning back into Simon. While all the wizards panic, Simon just casually walks out and realizes he's back to normal. That's when he runs into Ash, Marceline's ex-boyfriend, who we last saw a few seasons back. He starts flaming Simon for no reason before Simon punches him and steals his magic carpet. Keep this moment in the vault for now, as there's a cute callback in a future episode. Simon comes back to the Ice Kingdom, where we see a secret library that he created as Ice King. It seems like even in his lost state, he managed to salvage a bunch of his research. He is then reminded of Betty, and consequently Marceline. He calls her and says,
Marcy, it's me, Simon. I'm back, but my body might donk out soon, so get to the Ice Kingdom fast and help me with this time portal so I can find Betty and say I'm sorry before I croak boat. I know that's a lot to process, but hurry and bring Hambo. Hambo is the key.
And as expected, Marceline passes out from shock. A cool detail that we see is that the main Ice Kingdom tower is shown to be crying, mourning the loss of its creator. They arrive and we get a short but sweet reunion. And we also get this cool piece of dialogue between Finn, Jake, and Simon.
Do you remember anything from when you were the Ice King?
Nothing specific, just dreamlike impressions.
After this, the three of them help Simon in creating the portal, using Hambo as the key, an item from the past that has been loved through the ages. Marcy says goodbye to her bear, and we see Betty in the past, running away from past Simon after he had found the crown. She starts to cry as a portal opens in front of her. Future Simon tells her he's sorry for everything that happened, that he's here to say goodbye and find some closure. Betty then pulls this illegal move. She says,
Simon, I know who I'm leaving you for.
Who?
You, dum-dum!
Now, one could make the argument that this is the reason Betty disappeared in the past, because she entered the future. I mean, otherwise, Prisma would show up and do some rewriting. This is probably just a paradox. Simon then passes out and begins to look weak. He explains,
I'm old. The crown was keeping me alive.
Betty then comes up with a plan to fix the crown and then fix Ice King. Simon is not on board, urging the others to stop her, but they kind of just let her do her thing. Betty is such a badass. She enters a new world filled with magic and all sorts of creatures and immediately sets out to fight Bellanoche, the creature that took away Ice King's powers. Simon hangs on to her carpet and begs Betty to stop, saying that he doesn't want to live as the Ice King anymore, that it's borderline torture. Betty then tells him that with enough time, she can figure out a way to undo the crown's curse. Death shows up and follows them, telling Simon to be rational here.
You're gonna be the Ice King till the sun blows up. This is your one chance.
They arrive, and we get this funny scene.
Don't be a wimp, Simon! Just give me a second.
You got about 15 seconds.
Betty pulls a TFS Goku.
Give me all of your energy. Right now.
I'll end it in one punch, man.
And defeats Bella Noche, returning all the wizards into their true selves, including Simon.
You lose, Simon. Sorry, man.
The episode ends with Ice King doing his usual nonsense with the princesses, while Betty looks at him from a distance with sorrow before leaving. This episode was huge for Ice King's lore because it confirmed a major theory that everyone had. Since it had been centuries since Simon put on the crown, it'd only be logical that if he turned back to normal, he'd die. It's extremely grim, however, that Simon didn't get his wish. He has to live as the Ice King even longer, instead of embracing the cold yet comforting grip of death. Betty becomes a big driving force in future episodes. I'll briefly mention the season 6 episode, You Forgot Your Floaties. I have a detailed analysis of this episode in my Magic Man character breakdown, click the eye to go watch that video, but in essence, Betty comes to Magic Man in hopes he can help her find a way to turn Simon back. Things go wrong, and she accidentally inherits Magic Man's powers, and therefore, his madness. She's gone off the deep end, hence the title, You Forgot Your Floaties. In season 6, we also have the episode Evergreen. I also have a whole video recapping and breaking down this episode that you guys should go watch, but I'll briefly explain why this is important to Simon/Ice King. Several million years ago, there is this ice elemental called Urgence Evergreen. He creates the magical crown that would later be picked up by Simon in hopes of stopping the incoming Catalyst comet. A comet that would plunge the world into chaos, giving birth to the Lich. The crown's main function is to grant the wearer their deepest wish. Evergreen is kind of an asshole, treating this cute dinosaur named Gunther like a slave and never truly respecting him. After finishing the crown, things go wrong and he ends up trapped underneath some ice. This leaves Gunther the only one who can put on the crown to wish for the extinction of the comet. Unfortunately, because Gunther idealizes Urgence Evergreen, he mistakenly wishes to be like him, turning him into this bearded ice wizard who says Gunther all the time. The scene then transitions into the present, where we see that the entire episode was a nightmare that Ice King was having. This is important for two reasons. One, this explains the origin of the crown and why it grants the wearer ice powers, and two, it explains why Ice King calls people around him Gunther sometimes. This episode is extremely important and often overlooked by fans, and again, I highly recommend you check out my video on it. We now arrive at season 7, to the Stakes miniseries. This is a Marceline-centered story where she asks PB to turn her back into a human. Unfortunately, doing that has unleashed 5 of the toughest vampires she has slayed in the past. In the second episode, we witness that same scene back in Holly Jolly Secrets, but from a different POV. See, Simon intended for that tape to be for Marceline, but because he was beginning to lose more of his mind to the crown, he took it with him. He apologizes to her, explaining that he has to leave in order to protect her. His powers are growing stronger, and he knows that if he fully becomes the Ice King, Marceline might never see him the same way again. So he makes the painful choice to go, allowing her to remember him as Simon. It is later revealed that the reason she even hunted vampires in the beginning was because of him. By protecting humans, it felt like she was protecting him. It is also mentioned that one of the vampires, the Empress, had once taken control of Simon in the past, probably when he was on the cusp of fully turning. The Empress tries to do the same in the present, but no longer can because Ice King's mind is so far gone. At the end of the series, Marceline gives up on taking out the final boss when she is visited by Ice King once more. He says he saw everything going to shit and that his friends were in danger. He didn't come to the battlefield to help, however. He came because he had FOMO. Such a goated character. He says this line,
"You and me, we're survivors, right?"
And although he trails off talking about some nonsense, this is enough for Marceline to get back in the fight and finish it off. I feel like the scene is also overlooked. Ice King here seldom says a lot of profound things that hint that Simon is still in there with him. It's like a part of him remembers the time he and Marcy were out there trying to survive after the Mushroom War, but the power of the crown always triumphs in the end. Let's now get to the episode King's Ransom. Ice King crashes into Finn and Jake's treehouse, clamoring on about,
"Where is he?"
We then get one of my favorite Jake scenes to ever grace the show.
Jake? He's right there.
Man, Ice King, you better roll on.
Ice King then explains to the two that Gunther has gone missing and that he can't find him anywhere. They go back to the Ice Kingdom and find a ransom note. It reads,
"If you ever want to see Gunther again, go to Moose Bone Clearing in the Forgotten Forest. Come alone. Don't bring any cops."
They arrive and the pair hide inside a bush while Ice King stays out in the open. He hears a voice emitting from the trees and we get another funny scene.
"Put the crown on the ground and leave."
First, show me Gunther.
"No."
Okay.
A fox shows up and steals it, leading to a Looney Tunes style chase scene. Ice King eventually finds out from Mr. Fox that the one behind it all uses a tin can on a string to communicate. And we also see that if Ice King is far away from the crown, he starts to resemble Simon more.
You actually look kind of good like that. Nice full beard, little button nose.
You look tight?
Thanks, dudes.
Meanwhile, we see that the perp is experimenting with the crown, using Gunther's power as Orgalorg as some kind of catalyst. The three then use Ice King's nose as a compass. When it's pointing toward the crown, it grows. They eventually arrive at this lava river, where Ice King tells Finn and Jake to hang back, as he alone has to be the only one to save Gunther. After doing this, he arrives inside the cave, and we see that the one who stole Gunther was in fact Betty. She gives him back his crown and Gunther before disappearing. Although it's a heartwarming reunion between IK and Gunther, we can see that Betty has done something to the crown, which leads us directly to season 8, Broke His Crown. PB and Marceline head over to Ice King's for a cheeky dinner. PB is obviously hesitant because all Ice King has done is kidnap her, and Marcy says,
I wish you'd call him Simon.
Unfortunately, when they get there, Ice King starts glitching out, causing PB to examine him. She says,
There's something really wrong with Simon.
Cute development there. She takes him back to the lab and realizes that something inside the crown is causing Ice King to go haywire. The two then head inside the crown and find that it's a whole labyrinth with a bunch of other people who've previously used the crown, including Gunther from the episode Evergreen, Santa Claus, and Simon. The crown has been infected with this malware, which he's been investigating closely. After having a quick heartfelt reunion with Marcy, the two explain that they're here to figure out what is causing Ice King to go crazy in the real world. While they follow the path of the malware, Simon apologizes to Marcy for how they met last time, how he was solely focused on telling Betty he was sorry rather than making more time for her. I like that this was acknowledged within the show, because I always felt that Simon should have interacted with Marceline more during the episode Betty. At least he's apologetic about it. Then he says a very interesting line.
So, you got a boyfriend yet?
No, there was this guy once, but he was a real jerk, so I dumped him hard.
Wish I'd been there to punch his face.
Cute dramatic irony here, because in the episode Betty, Simon punches Marceline's ex without knowing it was him. Eventually, they come across this AI Betty bot that's been infecting the crown. Simon tries to reason with it, stating,
Remember how we met when we both reached for the same book in the library and I said you should check it out first? And when you returned it, you left a note inside because you knew I'd borrow it next?
After turning her back, PB inspects the crown to see that the malware has stopped and that everything is going back to normal. Unfortunately, this means that the crown is gonna reseal itself off from the other crown users within, meaning Marcy won't be able to come see Simon again. After saying goodbye, the Ice King comes back to normal. This episode confirms that those who put on the crown are still alive within, but are stuck in an impossible to follow labyrinth. It puts into perspective why Simon would rather die than become the Ice King. It's because he's stuck in some ethereal prison, unable to leave, and unable to interact with anything. It just adds to the tragedy of his character. Finally, we arrive at the Elements miniseries. After Finn and Jake come back from meeting humans in the Islands miniseries, they find that Ooh has been mutated into 4 different elements. Thankfully, however, Ice King was among the few who hadn't transformed. After saving Finn and Jake, he explains what happened before everything went bonkers. After the pair left, Betty visited Ice King and told him that she's going crazy trying to figure out ways to fix him, that she's essentially stuck. She then asks him out on a date, to which he accepts, not because he remembers her or anything, but again, because the guy's just lonely. He gets styled up and arrives at her house. Betty then creates a portal to this old restaurant that she and Simon used to go to, a version that she fabricated with her magic. After having dinner, Betty gets frustrated that he doesn't remember anything and pushes him through a portal back to his home. She then has an interesting conversation with the tiny Manticore.
Maybe you're going after someone who doesn't exist anymore. Why not take him as he is? After all, you've been through a lot of changes yourself.
This just makes me want to do a deep dive on Betty's character. Let me know if you guys want that down below. She then arrives and apologizes to Ice King, telling him that the person she knew, Simon, is no longer there. And it seems like she's finally accepted his transformation and wants to spend time with this new version of him. However, Patience shows up, freezes Betty to use her as a power source before causing Ooh's drastic transformation. The rest of the miniseries involves Finn and Jake saving Betty, and then trying to grab the crown jewels of all the princesses in the land, because, as she states, she can utilize them along with the Incarvidian to reverse all the changes. This is in fact a massive lie, and her plan was to use them to transform Ice King back into Simon. As expected, this fails, and she's transported to Mars. Deserved. I'll briefly touch on the episode Fionna and Cake and Fiona. Ice King hosts a book reading for his fans and is asked this question.
Where do your ideas come from?
They're beamed into my melon at night, same as everybody else. Next!
Keep this line in mind. Then out of nowhere, the real Fiona shows up and calls out the Ice King for making shit up. She even has a tape from one of her adventures that she puts on for everyone. Naturally, this fills everyone with an absurd amount of questions, including us as the audience. Ice King then invites her to his house, and she keeps asking to see more Fionna and Cake tapes of his, but he says he doesn't have any. I remember being extremely confused while watching this episode. Ice King made up Fionna and Cake, so how does she just randomly exist in the real world? And why does does she have a tape of one of her adventures? The Ice King then figures out that this Fionna is an imposter. She explains that she used to be a tech worker when, one day, she intercepted a signal that showcased Fionna and Cake in the flesh. She became obsessed with it and roamed Ooo for years until she finally found Ice King, hoping to steal more tapes from him. She then yells at him, telling him that Fionna and Cake aren't real.
They're just like a TV show from the past or something.
After she leaves, we witness one final scene, a callback to the beginning of the episode.
Cake, what time is it?
Whack.
At the time, this reveal was extremely confusing. Are they real? Who sent this beam to Ice King? We didn't get any answers until many years later. This episode now serves as foreshadowing for the Fionna and Cake spin-off series, which I'll touch on in just a moment. For now, let's get into the finale. Come along with me. Ice King plays a small role here. See, after Betty summons Gulp to Ooo, we get this scene.
Oh my Gulp! Look, Betty, I keep seeing reference to this mysterious entity that embodies chaos.
It turns out that centuries ago, Simon had studied Gulp, and when the Ice King saw Gulp in the present, it triggered a brief flash of that forgotten memory. Later, Betty and Ice King get swallowed by Gulp, and Finn jumps in to rescue them. Inside his stomach, he begins to digest them, breaking them down into their essential forms, meaning that Ice King goes back into Simon, and Magic Man Betty reverts to normal Betty. Although they are trapped, they share a touching reunion. We then get one of the most profound scenes in the show.
I always figured I'd go out saving somebody.
Hey, no one gets to choose how it happens.
It seemed as though Simon accepted his death, something he was denied of in a previous episode. He can finally die with his one true love, but then suddenly Gulp's body opens up. Simon and Finn are about to leave, but Betty stays. The crown has reverted back into its wishing form, and she tells him that she's gonna make a wish to banish Gulp once and for all. Otherwise, he's gonna destroy Ooo. She pushes the two out and tries to wish Gulp away. It doesn't work, and eventually she states,
"However it has to happen. I wish for the power to keep Simon safe."
What we see next is this terrifying Lovecraftian transformation sequence, until finally we see that Betty and Gulp have fused. Simon begins to weep because he's lost his true love once again. Betty leaves while Simon remains in the land of Ooo. We do see a brief scene of him visiting Prismo, presumably to wish for Betty back, but just like Magic Man tried with Margles, Prismo is unable to fulfill the wish. Tragically, he wasn't able to be with Betty again, but in the final closing moments, it seems like he's getting along well in the land of Ooo. He's no longer trapped as the Joke who was always alone, and can finally live on in his true form. That's the story of Ice King, the Joke that wept. And now a new story begins. After the show ended, a sequel series was announced, titled Fionna and Cake. This series, while being a spin-off of sorts, is also a deep character study of Simon Petrikov. The first episode, titled Fionna Campbell, follows Fionna in her eerily normal world. Everything's kind of boring, and it seems like the life has been sucked out of her. Cake is a normal cat, and all those wacky characters we've seen previously are no longer present. The episode ends with Cake the cat following some weird sparkles and entering this fridge. In the next episode, titled Simon Petrikov, we pick up a few years after the show ended. Unlike what we saw in the finale, after a few years of living in the land of Ooo, Simon is shown to be extremely depressed. He lives as an exhibit, being the 20th century man for people to look at. Not only has his grief over Betty gotten worse, but he's starting to resent the world he's living in. He has PTSD, especially when people ask him about his fanfiction Fionna and Cake. There's this one kid who keeps asking him about it, and he keeps telling her that he didn't write it, that the Ice King did. Simon also can't stand being near ice cubes because it reminds him of his time as the Ice King, but paradoxically, he also wants to become the Ice King again. He feels he doesn't fit in this new world of magic and advanced humans.
I might as well be a dinosaur to you all.
Finn even asks Simon if he's spoken to Marceline about his feelings, but he says,
"Nah, I didn't want to freak her out."
After all, she has her own life with PB now. Simon also keeps doing this weird Gulp ritual to try and reach Gulp, but whenever he does this, a rift opens from his head. This causes Cake to come out. Eventually, Fionna follows too. That's when we finally get some answers. Prismo brings the three of them into his time room and explains how Fionna and Cake came to be. See, back in the past, Prismo got tired of creating wish realities from other people's wishes and decided to create his own universe. That was the Fionna and Cake universe. Not really original, as he states,
Shit, did I just copy Finn and Jake?
The thing is, this is forbidden, and he decided to hide this universe inside the head of the most cursed individual he knew, Ice King. So he beams it into his head. This is a callback to the episode Fionna and Cake and Fionna in the original show. But you see, since Ice King turned back into normal, that made Fionna and Cake's world turn back into normal too. Eventually, some nonsense happens, and the three are transported to another universe. Simon then states that he wants to go back to being Ice King to transform Fionna and Cake's world back into magic. The thing is, he's not doing this for some noble cause. He's doing it it out of dreaded loneliness. He no longer wants to live in a world where he feels so out of place. So they begin multiverse hopping to find the magic crown to turn him back. They visit a bunch of universes, including the farm world dimension. There are a couple here though that speak to the importance of Simon's character. In one universe, we see another version of Simon / the Ice King called the Winter King. In this reality, Simon managed to fight off his insanity and became the quote-unquote perfect version. He's created his own kingdom with kind, loyal subjects. We even see that he made little Marcy into an ice person. This reality is the polar opposite of the one we know, because in this one, PB is the crazed lunatic madly in love with Simon. In the end, it's revealed that the reason this Simon managed to fight off the curse is because he managed to transfer it to Princess Bubblegum. So for about 100 years, PB was trapped as this nutcase. This guy is an absolute fraud who's probably the most evil version of Simon there is. Later on, we visit a universe with one key distinction. Back when the mushroom bomb detonated, we see little Marcy roaming the barren lands of Ooh when she comes across a dead version of Simon. She is then approached by the Vampire King, and he adopts her. This leads to Ooh being overrun by vampires, and somehow becoming a much more bleak post-apocalyptic version of Earth. Marceline becomes a bloodthirsty vampire because she was raised by the Vampire King and not Simon. As stated earlier by Marcy in her Stakes miniseries, Simon was the reason she became a vampire hunter. His role as a father figure is a key part of his character, and from what we see from this universe, he is the sole purpose that the land of Ooh was able to find new life. After arriving in another deserted universe, Simon tells Fiona the story of how he met Betty. We see a memory of him presenting to students on mystical artifacts we've seen throughout the show. The students then flame him because they believe magic doesn't exist, but Betty, however, is a huge fan of him. He invites her to go on this expedition to find the Enchiridion, and she agrees. There, they form a close bond. It's clear they like each other, but try to keep it professional. After returning, word has gotten around that Simon has found the Enchiridion. She decides to hang back in her car because this is his moment, and she doesn't want to ruin it. It seems like Simon is about to confess his feelings to her, but again, he keeps it professional. We then finally see exactly where that first photo of Simon Petrikov was taken back in season 4. A fantastic callback. A couple of weeks later, Simon checks out the same book Betty borrowed to find a note from her. She knew that he would be the next one to check it out.
What I really want to say is, I've admired your research for years. But during our expedition, I came to admire you as a person too.
Simon runs after her and finds her by the bus station. She's about to leave on a long 6-month trip to Australia for research. He stops her and finally professes her feelings for her, and the two hug. Fiona then asks him,
"So you got on the bus with her?"
Yep. Well, no. Why would I?
This line that gets cut off by Simon is extremely important, which I'll come back to later. At the end of the episode, Fiona reveals she had taken the crown from another dimension, but doesn't want to curse Simon from living as the Ice King. He tells her that it's fine and that he's made his peace with it. After recreating that gold ritual again to create the portal inside his head for Fiona and Cake, he is accidentally transported into Golbetty's dimension. After she turns the Lich into this floating 3D shape, Simon tells her,
"You gave me a second chance, and I've wasted it."
But ever since then, he's done nothing with his life and merely wallowed in self-pity. But then he mentions how he met Fiona and Cake, and that now with the crown, he can give them a second chance at life. This surprisingly catches the attention of Golbetty. As he puts on the crown, she transports him into the far future, during the time of Shermie and Beth. Simon somehow takes over Shermie's body, thinking that he's in a different dimension. Eventually, along with the help of Beth, he finds a mystical artifacts book, which he thinks this world Simon wrote. However, he finds that this is a choose-your-own-adventure book, starring two characters, Casper and Nova. See, these two characters go on adventures together, when one day they hear about a magic crown. Casper wants to go for the crown, while Nova wants to explore other ancient artifacts. But she also doesn't mind going along with Casper's plan. Simon wants the crown, so he chooses Casper's. Unfortunately, the crown's been stolen by someone else, and Casper is bitten. The two then try to go back and choose a different decision, but they're unable to. And we get an important line from Beth.
No do-overs with this book, I guess.
See, after this, Simon constantly chooses Casper's ideas and ignores Nova's. Every time he does so, the crown gets further and further away. It is clear here that Casper and Nova represent Simon and Betty. Simon always put his ambitions and goals over Betty's. She gave up on her dreams to be with him. She made Simon take full credit for finding the Enchiridion, despite it being a collective effort. She came to Ooh from the past and then lost herself in the pit of madness when she got Magic Man's powers. And worst of all, she is the one who sacrificed herself so that Simon could live in the land of Ooh, and eventually became this god of chaos. Nova is constantly sacrificing herself for Casper's goals. Simon even exclaims,
"There should be more choices!"
And Beth responds,
"Well, maybe there would be, if you hadn't picked Casper's options every time."
She even mentions how Nova was obsessed with Casper, but Simon thought that their love was equal, and we get this important piece of dialogue again.
But he could have been more thoughtful. He could have noticed that she was sacrificing.
over and over.
Realizing this, he is transported back into his body. He talks to Golbetty once more, realizing the kind of sacrifices she made, and he then relives that same memory back at the bus stop. If he made the effort to support her dreams, he may never have found the crown. He then changes the memory and says,
"You know what? The Enchiridion can wait. Let's go check out some petroglyphs."
And he's about to get on the bus with her, but he realizes that this isn't how it happened. Betty says that they made their own choices, that perhaps they could have made better ones, and she says that she has no regrets, that despite all the heartache they've been through, Simon was a wonderful experience. She then sits down, and we see her Golbetty form once more, suggesting that this was her chaos form speaking to him. When he comes back, he says,
"Was that conversation all in my head?"
I'll let Dumbledore take this one.
Of course it's happening inside your head, Harry. Why should that mean that it's not real?
This memory allows Simon to realize that he is worthy of life. Fiona then calls him, telling him not to put on the crown to change their world, that she likes it the way it is. Unfortunately, the main villain is about to destroy the world, and after Simon loses his mind because he's been given too much responsibility, Golbetty then causes him to cough up Fiona and Cake's universe in the form of a dandelion. This dandelion symbolizes hope and a new beginning. Through some miracle, this authorizes the world to officially become a part of the multiverse. It seems like Golbetty is now about to eat Simon, and he says,
"Thank you,"
before accepting his fate. Instead, however, she blows him away, and he makes it back to his universe. Simon Petrikov lives out the rest of his days in Ooh, feeling a newfound appreciation for life. He keeps in touch with Fiona here and there, seeking therapy from a Minerva bot, and even tells that little kid who was obsessed with Fiona and Cake about his adventure. We see an interesting paradox, actually. She is the one who will eventually create the Choose Your Own Adventure book, Casper and Nova, which appears 1,000 years later. And at the time of me making this video, this was the last time Simon had appeared. When I look at Simon's story, it kind of reminds me of Anakin Skywalker. Both of these people were once seen as heroes, protecting the innocent from evil, but were both consumed by a force that stripped them of who they once were. Anakin became Darth Vader, an evil dictator who lost all the goodness of his past life, and Simon became the Ice King, a character who at first had evil intentions by kidnapping princesses and fighting Finn and Jake. Both are also shown to sometimes recall past memories. One simply can't control when that happens and immediately forgets, while one remembers everything but chooses to embrace the dark path he chose to walk. This isn't an exact comparison, but one that I think still works. If you like characters that have a similar story to Simon, please check out my book, The Shattered Absolution. He was a big inspiration for when I crafted some of the villains of the story. A villain that may seem like he has malicious intentions, but there's a lot more to his lore and character. Please check it out down below. Simon Petrikov's story is one of loss, grief, and ultimately one about acceptance. He was a person who had ambitions and passions, ones that were so strong that they got in the way of his personal life and affected his relationships. He loved Betty dearly, but it was his obsession that led him to find the crown and eventually become a deranged and unstable king who seemed evil in his intentions, but was ultimately just lonely and looking for friendship. This wasn't all there was to him, however, as he was also a loving and caring father. Before his transformation was complete, he found a little girl, raised her as his own, and she grew up to be a vampire hunter who saved countless humans. Sure, his heart may have been in the right place, both as Simon and the Ice King, but ultimately, his choices led down a chaotic path for both him and his fiancée. If he had been more considerate, been more aware of how much Betty loved him, perhaps they could have lived a wonderful life together, as seen in one of Marceline's dreams. You could say that because of Simon's inability to realize just how much Betty was sacrificing, he received intense karma in the form of the crown, which led both of them to inherit power that made them lose themselves. That's not to say he was selfish, as he too sacrificed his entire being to keep Marceline safe when Ooh reached total annihilation. Fiona and Cake has been renewed for a second season, but I truly hope that this is the end of Simon's story. I don't mind if he makes a cameo here and there, but I really don't see what else they could add to his story without feeling like they're scraping the bottom of the barrel. It's rare for a cartoon to go beneath the surface, beneath the fun-loving attitude, beneath the comedy and wackiness, but when it happens, it touches a different part of your soul. See, I remember watching Courage the Cowardly Dog and having nightmares while watching it. It established a classic formula. Courage sees something scary, Eustace flames him, and eventually the dog saves the day. But then in the final episode, we see Courage's backstory, that the reason he's so protective of Muriel and Eustace is because his parents were taken away from him at a young age, and he vowed to never let that happen again. And just like that show, Adventure Time succeeded in giving us a backstory that completely changed how you saw the show, from a formulaic cartoon with over-the-top characters to one of tragedy and heart. Simon Petrikov's story is about the importance of choice. To have a choice is a responsibility, and although we don't know what the future holds, we should always strive to do what's best, not only for us, but for those around us. And yet, even after all Simon had lost, his mind, his love, his name. Something of Simon remained. A kindness, a deep longing, a flicker of the man beneath the madness. He was never truly gone, just buried beneath frost and time. And when the ice finally melted, what emerged wasn't a villain, but merely a human still trying to make things right. A man learning to live again. This was the story of Simon Petrikov, The Silence After Sanity. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much. This was easily one of the most fun characters to recap and analyze. If you're new around here, please subscribe, as there's a lot more content I have planned to make. As always, hitting that like button and clicking that subscribe button keeps me motivated to make the best videos I can. Consider supporting me on Patreon for early access, and those who get the $3 tier have a chance to be featured in one of my future videos. I'm planning to do a game show style Adventure Time video with viewers in the near future. Thank you to those who supported me already, it truly means a lot. Please check out my book down below, and I want to thank you once again for watching.